Okay, let's dive right into this explainer because we are unpacking one of the most scandalous, yet absolutely crucial narratives in ancient biblical history. Picture a woman sitting veiled at the dusty entrance of an ancient town called Enayim. She is waiting. Actually, she's been waiting for years, for a promise that was made to her and never kept. What unfolds from this incredibly quiet moment of waiting is a story that literally alters the course of biblical history, weaving an absolute outsider into the very fabric of a royal lineage. To really get this, we actually have to start at the dramatic climax of the story. It's a stunning courtroom confession where a powerful patriarch admits his own guilt to vindicate a woman who was just condemned to death. Look at Judah. He's the fourth son of Jacob, the patriarch of the tribe that would eventually produce the kings of Israel. And he's looking at his daughter-in-law Tamar, whom he had literally just ordered to be executed. And he utters this mind-blowing phrase, "She is more righteous than I." It's a total admission of his own profound failure and a massive recognition of her moral courage.
So this brings up a compelling historical mystery. When you turn to the pristine opening pages of the New Testament, why on earth would the Gospel of Matthew deliberately include this deeply uncomfortable, disguised roadside encounter right in the opening genealogy of Jesus Christ? I mean, on the surface, it's a story about a woman who disguises herself to trick her father-in-law into fathering her child. It carries the texture of one of the most uncomfortable passages in the Hebrew Bible. So why would the New Testament writers deliberately highlight this exact moment right out of the gate in chapter 1?
Well, to solve this mystery, we have to recognize that Matthew was intentionally breaking all the rules. See, first-century Jewish genealogies were strictly patrilineal. They followed a very rigid formula, X the father of Y. But in Matthew chapter 1, the author breaks this pattern 5 distinct times just to name women. And Tamar? She is the very first one mentioned. What's even wilder is that scholars widely agree she was likely a Canaanite, a total outsider who married into Israel's covenant family. Placing her right there at the start of the New Testament is a brilliantly intentional theological statement. It tells us we really need to look closer at what she actually pulled off.
To understand the extreme stakes of Tamar's survival, we first need to understand the ancient law she was desperately trying to uphold. It all hinged on an ancient covenantal safety net called levirate marriage. In her world, a woman without male kin was profoundly vulnerable. Basically, in the ancient Near East, if a husband died before having a male heir, it was the strict duty of his surviving brother to marry the widow. And this wasn't just about preserving the dead brother's name. It was absolutely essential for ensuring the widow's economic and social protection. Tamar had been widowed twice. She was childless. She was legally owed this protection by Judah's youngest son, Shelah.
Now, the contrast between these two is just stark. Think about Judah's choice here. He is comfortable. He has all the patriarchal power. He promised Tamar that she could marry Shelah once he grew up, and then he chose convenient inaction. The text tells us that Shelah did grow up, and Judah just did nothing. He silently broke his promise, probably out of fear. The Hebrew text uses a really interesting verb here, yashav, which means to sit, to dwell, or to remain. So both Judah and Tamar were in this state of waiting. But while Judah had the power to act at any time, Tamar was forced into this trapped, imposed waiting, sent back to her father's house to essentially wither away as a suspended widow.
But when Judah's inaction became totally undeniable, Tamar decided she wasn't just going to sit there. She executed a calculated sting operation at a liminal crossroads during the sheep shearing festival, a time known for relaxed social inhibitions. She knew Judah would be traveling to Timnah. She also knew he'd recently been widowed himself. So she takes off the garments that mark her as a bound widow, wraps herself in a concealing veil, which hides her identity but also signals her availability, and she sits right at the entrance to a name. The word for entrance there, petach, literally means a threshold. It's so poetic, right? She's occupying this liminal space, caught perfectly between the identity imposed on her and the identity she's stepping up to claim.
What happens next isn't just a transaction. It is an absolute legal masterstroke. When Judah approaches her, she doesn't just ask for a goat as payment. No, she secures the exact ancient forensic evidence she's going to need to prove his undeniable obligation. Judah promises to send a young goat later, but Tamar insists on a pledge right then and there. And look at what she asks for: his signet ring, his cord, and his staff. These are not just random items. The signet, or chotam, was his legal seal for transactions. The cord, pethiel, was a unique personal identifier, and the staff, mate, was the supreme mark of his tribal patriarchy. She secured his complete legal and tribal identity. It was basically a flawless covenantal receipt.
Fast forward 3 months. Word reaches Judah that his daughter-in-law has acted as a prostitute, the Hebrew word used is zanah, and that she's pregnant. The bitter irony here is just thick. Judah weaponizes his patriarchal authority to eliminate a problem of his own making, utterly unaware that he was the man involved. As her father-in-law, he holds this quasi-paternal authority, and without missing a beat, he immediately orders the most extreme, lethal verdict. Bring her out and let her be burned.
So, Tamar is facing imminent execution. But instead of panicking, she brilliantly bypasses public shame. She doesn't argue, she doesn't scream her innocence in the town square. She privately sends his own legal identifiers back to him with a devastatingly quiet question. As she's being led out to her death, she sends the signet, the cord, and the staff to Judah with this message: "By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant." She gives him the choice to identify them himself. In doing so, she risks her own life rather than publicly shaming the patriarch.
When those items are placed in front of Judah, the realization hits him like a ton of bricks. He doesn't just acquit her. He utters a word that changes everything, tzadkah, meaning she is more righteous than himself. It's honestly one of the most extraordinary moral declarations in the entire patriarchal narrative. Judah admits his complete failure. That word, tzadkah, means she is in the right. She is justified. By leveraging the only legal framework available to her, she had proven more faithful to Israel's covenantal obligations than the Israelite patriarch himself.
But the story has one final physical twist that perfectly captures this whole dynamic. When Tamar goes into labor with twins, one child reaches a hand out, and the human midwife ties a brilliant scarlet thread, a shani, around it to mark the expected firstborn. But then that hand withdraws, and the other twin unexpectedly bursts out first. His name is Perez, from the root peratz, which literally means to break through. It's this incredibly powerful literary parallel to other disrupted birds in Genesis. It overrides the human attempt to fix the order with a scarlet thread, showing us that God's purposes just don't run along the neat tramlines of human planning.
And this completely solves our gospel mystery from earlier. Tamar isn't in Matthew chapter 1 by accident. She's there because when the male leaders failed, she stepped up and enforced covenant justice. She displayed massive righteousness under extreme, mortal pressure, completely reversing her own public shame. And she secured Israel's royal line as a Gentile outsider by risking her own life as a substitute to secure a redemptive future. God routes the messianic line to the unexpected and the marginalized, clearly prioritizing covenant faithfulness over pristine, comfortable appearances.
We can physically trace this unbreakable thread of redemption all the way from the dusty threshold of Enaim, right through the throne of King David around 1000 BC, all the way to Jesus Christ in the 1st century. If you look at the genealogy, every single link of the chain leading to David and eventually to Jesus passes straight through Perez, the son born of Tamar's courageous, scandalous act. When the covenant was about to just stall out in comfortable inaction, she stepped right into the breach and kept the thread alive.
Ultimately, the God of the Bible is consistently a God who works through the breach, through the cracks in human plans, the gaps in our expectations, and the spaces left by human failure. Tamar's masterclass in survival proves that divine providence doesn't always run on neat, predictable tracks. The thread of redemption didn't break because it was held together by an outsider. It really leaves us to wonder, how does this change the way we view our own moments of powerlessness? And might divine providence still be using the marginalized to break through our broken systems today?